Greg Bolanos, heard Sunday mornings at 10.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
This is about the closest I'll probably ever have in my life to an I am Spartacus moment.
On AM 560, The Answer.
There we go. Hi. Good
Hello
morning,
again, everybody.
Amy Jacobs at Take Two. We got Quinn there. He's learning the board. He's doing a great job. Dan's off this week, so that's why that's happening.
Am I doing a great job?
And you are doing a wonderful job.
Okay.
I really appreciate it. Big news. I mean, it's making national headlines. It's hard not to talk about this story. The Jussie Smollett staged attack. We know that the two brothers have been cleared by Chicago police. They are free to move about the cabin, so to speak, because they were monitoring them over the weekend, making sure that they didn't talk to the media. But now they're talking to the media. They spoke with WBBM reporter.
We are not racist, we're not homophobic, and we are not anti-Trump. We were born and raised in Chicago and are American citizens.
So Jussie Smollett, we found out, too, has a motive for staging this attack. Apparently, he sent himself, or he had those two Nigerian brothers send a threatening letter to the set at Empire set here in Chicago, where it said basically, die, you know, blank, blank, blank. And it was with cutout from a magazine. You know, the letters were spelled out, Bruce?
Sure. Yes.
And then there was a white substance in there, too. Well, the white substance turned out to be aspirin. And Jussie Smollett was apparently outraged that he didn't get enough attention. So then he concocted the staged attack and proceeded to go on Good Morning America to lie about it.
Who the would make something like this up or add something to it or whatever it may be? I can't even, I'm an advocate.
And he kept saying, oh, I want the truth to come out.
Then I look down and I see that there's a rope around my neck.
You know,
I think that what people need to hear is just the truth.
Okay, so we want you to tell the truth. We want to hear your side of the story,
doesn't he sound
Jussie Smollett.
persuasive?
He does, because he's an actor.
Well, I mean, not everybody is. To me, he's more persuasive than Mia Farrow was when she was testifying against Woody Allen. So, great acting job.
He said, this MAGA country punches me right in the face. So I punched his ass back. I noticed the rope around my neck and I started screaming.
Well, it turns out that he bought that rope. They found a receipt for a clothesline that was purchased at the Crafty Beaver. They found that receipt in the brother's apartment.
He's still maintaining his innocence, though, and you could turn these facts all around and say, these guys say they're Americans, they're not anti-Trump, maybe they're pro-Trump, they had their faces blocked by a mask, maybe they're the ones who actually attacked Jussie. Wouldn't that be neat if it turned out that way? Of course, I'm living in dreamland.
Well, and there's a money trail, too, because they were paid $3,500 with the promise of $500 to be paid down the line. I don't know what electronic banking statements they have, but you know that police are on this. With more on this and how it's affecting race relations across the country, because Jussie Smollett checked every box off. He made it a political issue, he made it a homophobic issue, and he made it a race issue. Let's join our brother in sound. It's always a pleasure to have Larry Elder on the show. Good morning, Larry. How are you?
Morning, Amy and Bruce. And don't forget, Amy, he made it a Trump issue.
Right, exactly. And you know what? They did find in this apartment, when they raided the apartment, a red hat, because apparently they couldn't find a MAGA hat in Chicago. So they went to a store in Uptown that's on Broadway there and bought a red hat to make it look like.
What does it say, Amy, about Chicago? You have to go uptown to buy a red cap.
I know.
And the likelihood of two guys in that area of Chicago at 2 o'clock in the morning wearing red caps. People tell me who are from Chicago that's basically saying, kick me.
Right. So then we had a lot of people, I don't know about on the national level, but local reporters who were questioning this, who, said, hey, look, there's video of him walking into his building, still holding that tuna Subway sandwich that he bought, which is ridiculous.
Was it a tuna sandwich?
Yes, I tweeted you back this morning at 2 a.m.
You did? I was wondering what kind of sandwich it was.
Yes. But the strategy is clear that if you doubted him, you were motivated by racism.
Yeah, and if you're black and you doubt him, you're a self-loather. Look, this advanced the agenda of the left. That is, racism remains a major problem in America. That's what they believe. And, of course, the Trump derangement syndrome. So it was a perfect storm for all of that. It's a lie that racism remains a major problem in America. It's a damn lie, and people like Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, and Eric Holder have been pushing that for a long time. And also Barack Obama. Barack Obama once said that racism is in America's DNA. Think about that. In the 1950s, when white Americans were asked, under any circumstances, would you vote for a black person for president? Those who said yes were in the single digits. Obama got more votes, more white votes than John Kerry did. There were 700 counties that voted twice for Obama, 2008, 2012. 200 of them switched to Donald Trump. When did they get bitten by the radioactive racist spider?
Yeah, here's
it's nonsense.
Yeah, it's so funny because Larry, I thought being naive. I remember when William F. Buckley wrote an article in Look magazine in 1970 and saying, we need a black president by 1980. Okay, we got one in 2008, and I thought, okay, we've arrived. There are no more problems anymore. And it seems like we've doubled down ever since the beer summit. It's like people's sensitivity has multiplied exponentially.
Right. And I agree with that analysis, but I blame Barack Obama. The high point in race relations, if you ask white people and black people, are race relations good or somewhat good? The peak came during the George W. Bush years, and the numbers of those who said yes to that declined dramatically during Obama, well before Donald Trump ever came down the stairs and said he's going to run for president. It's a lie. And Eric Holder, in my opinion, is one of the most egregious peddlers of this nonsense, and he's even more dangerous than Sharpton and Jackson because he's soft-spoken, he is a lawyer, he's courtly, and people respect him. Eric Holder said that the push for voter ID was, quote, pernicious racism, close quote. Memo, the majority of blacks want voter ID. How is it pernicious racism if the majority of blacks want it? He also said that the fact that black boys get kicked out of school at a higher rate than others in a given school is also pernicious racism. And Jesse Jackson once sued a school board in your state, Decatur, Illinois, which was all white. Yeah. They'd kicked out a bunch of black kids who were fighting after a football game, and Jesse Jackson sued them and accused them of racism. And the school board defended itself by pointing out all around the country black boys are kicked out more than others are, whether the school board is all white or a school board of all color, like in Oakland and in San Francisco, and it didn't matter the race of the principal. So black boys were just disrupting, and therefore they were being kicked out more, and Jackson and Eric Holder said that was pernicious racism. The other thing Eric Holder said was pernicious racism is the fact that black criminal defendants get a longer sentence for the same crime committed by a white criminal defendant, and that is true. But the Sentencing Commission that came up with that finding also said judges, when they come to sentencing criminals, take into consideration a number of factors, including the criminal history, work history, and the degree to which the defendant expresses remorse. And therefore, the commission said we could not determine that the differences had anything to do with race. So this guy, Eric Holder, has pushed this BS on the country because the Democrats need to have blacks paranoid and fearful about somebody taking away their civil rights, so they march in there like lemmings and pull that lever 95% for the Democratic Party. It is appalling.
Well, don't you think Jesse did this, though, to become a victim? I mean, this whole victimhood culture that we've created?
Yeah, of course he did. Apparently he tried to do it to make sure that he was not written out of the empire part. I read that. But the point is, why did so many people believe it? And the answer is the media pushes this narrative of racism remains a major problem in America, and they hate Donald Trump's guts. There was a wonderful novel some years ago called Bonfire of the Vanities, written by Tom Wolfe, and it was inspired because of the Tawana Brawley fraud. And he said the newspapers incessantly search for what he called the great white defendant. Ideally, a rich white guy who's privileged, who's done something wrong. Everybody loves that. White people are used to it, and people of color love it. And that's what the media is looking for. And so the Covington High School boys fit this. These two alleged white guys who beat up Jussie Smollett fit this. And this is what they're running with. The whole game is to make sure blacks continue to vote for that Democratic Party. Once they start thinking as individuals and say, hey, President Trump wants to do something about illegal immigration and illegal aliens take away jobs from inner city people who are unskilled and put downward pressure on their wages. Hey, Donald Trump wants to allow parents the option of not sending their kid to a crappy government school by providing vouchers. Maybe, just maybe, Donald Trump is not a racist. If that's racism, he needs to go back to racism school.
You know, I loved Bonfire of the Vanities. I wanted to grow up to be a master of the universe. I didn't want that novel to end, and it was about 890 pages. But you were talking about incarceration, and I'm reminded yesterday Kamala Harris, who puts her foot in her mouth every day, but I don't know if she's cute or something. I don't know. There's some reason she's Teflon. She shows a great flexibility with the facts. Yesterday, she actually had the chutzpah to say that we're not spending money on education. We're spending money on mass incarceration, and she was a prosecutor who put people in jail all the time.
Right. What do you say? And generally speaking, the people that blacks preyed on in prison are also other black people. And where are we when the idea is that we should make sure that prisons don't have too many of this race, too many of that race, as opposed to putting people behind bars who've done bad things? This is where we are in the country.
Wow. All right, Larry Elder, you can listen to his show right here. Guess what it's called, Dan? It's called The Larry Elder Show on AM 560, weekdays 7 to 9 p.m. As always, a pleasure having you on the show, and have a wonderful day, Larry.
Thank you, Larry.
Thanks.